If you recognize this thing, you might just be a Star-Lord. Hey everybody, this is Christopher, this is a Zune, and this is episode 2 of Tech Tuesdays. So I was about 16, 17 when my teenage self decided that my old pill-shaped MP3 player just wasn't doing it for me anymore. I wanted an upgrade. So, headed down to my local Walmart. I grabbed my $220 in cold hard cash, plopped it down, and bought this brand new, although soon to be retired, Zune HD. Now, considering the Zune went the way of the dodo 6 months after I bought it, I feel like I not only have to justify this thing, but also explain my reasoning for it. So first off, when it was out, price was one of the big things for me. For $10 cheaper at that time, Zune hosted twice the amount of storage compared to that 4th gen Apple product. $230 for an iPod with 8 gigabytes of storage, outrageous. And the thing about it is that this thing looked slick and mean. This was quite the slick, cool looking piece of tech when I remember looking at it in the Walmart. I mean, even in comparison to its nano competitor, I thought this was, in terms of looks, the better product. So, ignoring the Apple Store and Apple's overwhelming market share in the MP3 space, I walked out of that store feeling like I had made a good, well thought out decision. Little old me didn't realize the Zune went belly up almost immediately after. 14 years later, this little MP3 player that was triumphantly trying to take over Apple has just become another piece of tech sitting in someone's closet. But while we have it here, what are the pros and cons of this thing? I mean, is it even worth looking at or owning today? Well, here are my thoughts on it. First, the form factor. It's small, it's thin, it's sleek, and it fits really well in the hand. The buttons are well laid out. We've got 1, 2, and 3 right there. The glass and metal construction make it quite durable. As you can see, even with all of the abuse I've put it through, it still holds up pretty darn well. It even still has part of its "Hello from Seattle" right there still engraved on it, which I always thought was a pretty cool addition for this. Overall, it's just simple and effective. I don't have to worry about anything. It just works. Now that we're talking about it though, let's talk about the screen and the UI, which, man, talk about a blast from the past for my wallpaper. It is scratched. I don't know if I can there we go, kind of. At the top there. I mean, I've scratched it and abused it, but it still works. Like, it's not the fastest, obviously. It has been a few years, but it still works decently for what it does. They list the screen as being a 3.3-inch OLED online, which I can halfway buy. I'm kind of surprised, but the blacks are decent on it. Then again, the Zune being called a Zune HD feels like a practical lie, because it only displays video at 480 by 272. The only way you'd get HD off of this thing is a separate dock to connect your HD TV, which, like, I get that this was relatively new technology back then, and it might have been an issue to try and get it all crammed in here, or trying to create a bigger device for the same price, but it's quite a stretch to sell one of these back then. Good luck finding someone who actually bought an accessory for this thing. Also, on the topic of selling, I always thought the tagline wasn't that great either. So we'll pop this open and show you at least one of them that I remember. You pop it out and it says on the paperwork, Zune everywhere. Like, really? This thing was nowhere. I was the only person who ever owned one that I knew of. So personally, I always thought Zune in, zone out would have been a much better tagline. Why? Because you simply just plug it in and listen. It just has a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack on it. That's it. Like, you just plug in and you're done. You're listening to music, you're watching a video, you're listening to the radio. You're even online if you want to be online. There isn't any hassle to it, and the interface works surprisingly well. Speaking of which, it's just so simple. Press any button. You can go for power if you want. Go to the side here, which pulls up all of your basic info, or the basic home button, and it's just up and going. No passwords, no Face ID, no nothing. It's there. And that's what one of the things I really like about this is how simplistic but how user friendly it is. For example, like, we go to music, just hit music. We can go by genre, flip through to wherever we want to go. And notice here I'm going through and I'm going like way deep into the menu. And you're thinking, oh, but I immediately want to go back and do something else. Just hit the home button. You're right back there. Or if you're going through it, let's go back to music here. And we'll do album. We're scrolling. And we get in here, but we just want to go back. Just tap the top. That's it. That's all you got to do. Just tap the top to go back. Really simple. And here, autoplay everything. Just mix and match, autoplay all that you have on here. You even have playlists. This is so much nicer to just one shot, I'm done. I'm immediately listening to the music I want to listen to. And then we flip over and it says now playing. We already know what we're listening to. And just again, a tap. That's all you need. A tap or a side button press. And you're already to your volume, to skipping to what else you want to listen to. It is just that blatantly simple. And it made it so much easier, in my opinion, at the time, just to get to the music. Because that's all I really wanted from this was music. So we have all of our categories: video, picture, radio. It's there for the most part. I would say music, podcasts, and radio are the things that you would use this for. Video, you have decent quality with that OLED, but it's so tiny, it's almost not worth it. Marketplace and social and apps don't really work anymore, just FYI. You can sideload some apps onto it, but that's about it now. But at this point, this is kind of where the upsides fail, because we come to the music and I feel like this is where we start to take a turn for the worse. Because yes, the UI is great and the music plays decently and relatively accurate, but the experience has become underwhelming in revisitation. Like, we can go to our settings here and we can go to music and we can change stuff with the equalizer to make it sound a bit different, but with only 7 EQ settings that are just presets, that's about it. It's nice to have, but realistically, if you want more, as an audiophile, you're not going to get it. I mean, part of that is the sign of the times here, but this in comparison to, say, your phone, I'd almost grab for my phone when it comes to music on that portion. Next thing for this is storage and battery life. So the Zune came out with the Zune HD was 16 and I believe 64 gigabytes of storage on these things. And they were pretty nice at the time for that. But now if you are an audiophile, you're going to fill up that storage really quickly, even if you don't have podcasts or any kind of video, stuff like that. It'll fill up quite quick. And if you are an audiophile, you don't get much here with options. So if you're wanting like files that are FLAC, for example, you're not getting it. You got WMA, AAC, or MP3. And speaking of which, even with those lower quality files, battery at this point still isn't great. I got it to charge. It took quite a while. Granted, I was using my computer instead of a dedicated charger, but I got it to 75%, and I only listened to this thing for about half an hour on my Sennheisers, and it was down to 50. Like, I only see this being a 2-hour window maximum now. Part of that may have been my heavy use on it, but that's kind of where it is at this point. So, like, if you're looking for one, just keep that in mind. Also, connectivity. So, like, we go back here, and yes, it says internet. Great. Awesome. But that browser, even for the time, was horribly laggy. And there is no Bluetooth. So, like, if you want your wireless, you're not going to have it. I mean, being wired isn't a deal breaker. I love listening to music on my wired open back headphones, but it does create the second to last nail in the coffin for this guy, especially when you realize that you need a proprietary cable to connect, like, the headphones. It's just a regular 3.5 millimeter. But if you want to connect this thing to your computer, great. You can only use the connection that Zune created for this, or Microsoft created for this thing. And it's like, really? And that's where we come to the true killer of this Zune, the launcher. So without doing tweaking on the back end with third-party fixes and the like, newer versions of Windows 10 and 11 will not allow the launcher to load. It'll literally just take you to a 404 page. And unfortunately, it seems like you need that launcher to download any kind of drivers for the Zune. Otherwise, you can't even access this. It's literally not recognized. So, it was at this point when I stopped kind of strolling down memory lane and realized, you know what? I'm throwing in the towel here. Though it is a clever design and neat packaging for its time, the Zune just isn't worth messing with today, in my opinion. I will still keep it around, see what my teenage self was up to all those years ago, but would I go out and buy one of these used for roughly the same price as brand new? Nah. Hey guys, thanks for watching. So I'm going to wrap up this Zune here, but I wanted to talk about the channel a little bit. Nothing is going to change necessarily. We're still going to have Tech Tuesday on Tuesdays and Learn With Me calligraphy on Thursdays. But the plan is to kind of mix things up a bit. I want to do a new channel that's focused on one thing and not necessarily how-tos. So I'm thinking Fridays we're going to have a new channel. Not sure what it's called yet. We'll get there. But I'm thinking it's going to be video game based. Now, I'm not quite sure if we're going to do like a long form, short form, that kind of thing. We'll get there. But next Friday, I'm hoping to debut a new channel and new content. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully it all goes well. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye bye.